In yoga classes, you might be told that the way to face adversity is to be a hollow reed blowing in the wind. It won't break. It'll flex. It'll come back up. And Jolie's Grassland is a reminder of that, even though the individual pieces of grass, of course, are very stable. The decade that was 2008 to mid-2019, only 11% of museum art purchases were by women artists. Only 2% of auction sales were by women artists. Women, for at least the last 3/4 of a century, have been studying art in great numbers and teaching it. They're still that underrepresented in the marketplace of art. The National Museum of Women in the Arts is the only one in the United States that is solely dedicated to work by women artists. I'm Mary Ross Taylor, and the mission of the committee is to carry out the mission of the museum on the state level, and that means to bring awareness of the talents and accomplishments of women artists and to increase the appreciation of their work, particularly by museums and collectors. Paper Routes is one in a series of exhibits that the National Museum of Women in the Arts launched in 2008.
The committee has organized a traveling exhibition, and it will travel around the state throughout 2021. And Little Rock is the first location, but I know it's going to El Dorado, Arkadelphia, so it's going to cover many different parts of the state. It's connecting women artists that maybe didn't know each other existed.
You know, the scarab beetle in Egypt, it's a symbol for death, and it's also a symbol for transformation. Most art forms, you're adding something, or then there's subtractive, like if you've got a stone and you're chipping away. But for origami, you're taking something and just transforming it into something completely new without taking anything away or adding anything. The installation of the work is really important. It's never the same. It is site-specific. I do generally like to have an entry point and an exit point. My beetles are on a journey.
The playfulness of the beetles is you'll see them around the gallery in unusual places, like over a light socket, or maybe hiding behind a blade of grass, or on top of one of the platform dividing walls. And so I like that playfulness. It expands your experience.
And it's really hard to believe, looking at them, that these are individually printed photographs which have been folded into origami beetles of different sizes.
All of the little moments that are up here are family photos, they're pictures of things that I find beautiful or meaningful. And in the act of folding them, it is an appreciation and a love for those things, but then a bit of a letting go.
Kim's piece it's very political and it's personal. It's bright and colorful, so you're pulled into it, you know, and then when you learn about the piece, you sort of have to kind of stop in your tracks and think about it. It's not just a colorful pattern, there's more going on there.
This series is called Rosebud Moments in Paper Planes, dealing with the mugshot, investigating it as a kind of image, where the power lies in these images and the narratives that are created from them.
Mugshots are a moment when you're at your worst. So by working in the wet paper pulp, she's able to soften the look and give us something that we draw close to try to understand who's the person there.
It was like, how do I help these images to have their own sense of autonomy, and letting the images speak another narrative so that it can tell its own story. So if we can try to reframe it in a way where every individual matters, then maybe we don't have to worry so much about where we put people when they do things that we don't agree with. I'm putting people in a position to have empathy, and I'm hoping that they're able to.
Susanna Schreckhaus got to thinking about the fact that money was sort of the universal language of the US of A.
It's very puzzling to me that money, which is so important in society, to only have that represented by white men. I started thinking about power differentials and how money is very powerful in the United States. Money, exchange of money. So I thought, well, what would it be like to have a visual representation of androgynous figures of all different colors of skin tones?
Susanna composed a large canvas, 3 feet by 3 feet, and then painted in a different color on each face on all these dollar bills.
The repetition and rhythm of the wallpaper, the beetles, and the grass maybe is echoed in the dollar bill piece because the repetition of the dollar bills on the piece.
So the first thing you sort of see when you look at it is all these dollar bills with sort of these diamond-looking things. So I did that on purpose because I wanted to sort of draw people in. What I am hoping for is maybe children, maybe people of color, women, see this piece and feel supported or feel like in the future things could change.
The core of my work is kind of understanding how objects feel about each other, about its landscape that it's in, and also how we interact with those things. The piece in Paper Routes is part of a series, and the title is Start Never Ending.
In her piece, which really is sort of on the theme of memory and tradition, there are objects in several different materials, including a textile that she had woven.
So the rug within the piece is this idea of a woven history that is not completed. The ceramic object acts as this funny object where the rug is kind of getting pressed through and sliding through, almost kind of like a printer paper. And then there's also a drawing acting as kind of a window into another world or realm of understanding.
And her whole piece is really about that theme of how things are recorded and communicated in tradition.
The exhibition is such a tremendously exciting thing to be a part of. I'm impressed with the deep and political nature of the other artists' work and how meaningful that is. And it's nice that we could all be so different, but then have these things that marry us together into a really great show.